Howdy, folks. Today we're going to be talking about a man who needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. George W. Bush, the 43rd President of the United States. George Bush was born on July 6, 1946, at Grace New Haven Hospital in New Haven, Connecticut. He attended Yale and received his Bachelor of Arts degree in history. Then he entered Harvard Business School and graduated with an MBA degree. With all this prestigious schooling, you know the guy had to be pretty smart. I mean, no average Joe could be such a wizard of wording. Now, there are a lot of things that people remember about the Bush presidency, some good, some bad. So let's dive into the history books and see what we can learn. Alright, we have to start with the elephant in the room, which is, of course, 9/11. This event shaped the Bush presidency in ways we're still feeling today. In the immediate aftermath of the attacks, President Bush's approval ratings skyrocketed, and he became a symbol of strength and resilience for the American people. You may remember his iconic bullhorn speech where he stood atop a pile of rubble at Ground Zero and addressed the rescue workers and first responders. It was a moment of national unity and resolve that will be remembered for generations. In response to the attacks, President Bush launched the War on Terror, which began with the invasion of Afghanistan. The goal was to dismantle the Taliban regime, which had given safe haven to Al Qaeda, the group responsible for the 9/11 attacks. Yeah, those guys. The early days of the war were marked by swift military victories, but the mission soon became more complicated. In 2003, President Bush made the controversial decision to invade Iraq, citing concerns over weapons of mass destruction. The war in Iraq would become a defining moment of the Bush presidency, and not in a good way. You may remember his infamous Mission Accomplished speech, which declared victory in Iraq, but that was premature at best. The war in Iraq would drag on for years, and it was marred by controversy and scandal. Perhaps the most notorious of these was the Abu Ghraib scandal, where the U.S. soldiers were found to have tortured and abused Iraqi prisoners. The scandal was a huge blow to the reputation of the U.S. military, and it remains a stain on the Bush presidency. In 2008, the economy was hit by the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. President Bush responded with a series of emergency measures, with the aptly named TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, which was aimed at stabilizing the financial system. The measures were controversial, but many economists credit them with preventing a complete economic collapse. So, it could have been worse. Despite the challenges and controversies of his presidency, George W. Bush did have some significant accomplishments. For example, he signed the No Child Left Behind Act, which aimed to improve education standards in American schools. He also launched PEPFAR, which provided billions of dollars in funding for HIV and AIDS prevention and treatment programs in Africa. Additionally, Bush was a vocal advocate for the immigration reform, and he pushed for a comprehensive overhaul of the U.S. immigration system. While his efforts ultimately failed, they inspired future discussions on the issue, so potato potato. Finally, it's worth mentioning that since leaving office, George W. Bush has taken up painting as a hobby. He even published a book of his paintings, which includes portraits of world leaders and veterans who served in the wars he launched as president. So there you have it, folks. The presidency of George W. Bush was marked by some significant achievements, but was also marked by some significant failures and controversies. It's up to each of us to decide how we view his legacy, but one thing is for sure. It was a presidency that shaped our country and the world in profound ways. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay curious.